Okay, so I've got a lot to fit into my life. I've got a family, a full-time job and a piano habit to maintain, but I also practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and go to the gym several times a week. And I also try to read quite a lot, and I have a bunch of other side projects on the go at any one time. So in this video, I'm going to try to explain how I fit all of that in, starting with some general principles and then moving on to how I break down individual weeks and days. Timestamps are in the description if you'd like to skip around, but I've made the whole video as useful as I can, so I do really recommend that you watch the whole thing. Okay, so my first bit of advice is pretty simple, and that is to focus on one thing at once and avoid multitasking as much as possible. And here's the thing, I can see how superficially it makes sense in productivity terms to try and double up on tasks. Like you go, oh, I'm going to listen to audiobooks while I'm at the gym, or I'm going to put on a podcast while I'm playing video games. But the thing is, if you're listening to an audiobook at the gym, then you aren't really getting the benefit of either. You're not listening to the audiobook properly, and you're probably not focusing on your gym session as hard as you could be. If you're stretching or doing like a gentle run, I could maybe see this, but even then, I prefer to have times when I just listen to music and let my thoughts wander, because I do think that as well as taking a lot of information in, it's important to give your brain kind of downtime to process that information. And then another important one is, whenever I'm playing with my little boy, I try and make sure I'm focused on that as much as I possibly can be. Playing with 5-year-olds isn't always that exciting. They have some weird ideas, and sometimes they'll go off on a tangent that takes quite a long time. But whenever I make the effort to put my phone down, put my Kindle down or whatever, and actively engage in whatever he's doing, I always feel better afterwards. We always have a great time. And this is the kind of habit that extends to dealing with other people as well. Like if you can focus on being fully present when you're hanging out with your friends or your family or whatever, then you're getting more out of that time. You're feeling more relaxed from that downtime than you would be if you spent half of it like scrolling through your phone looking for someone to be mad at on Twitter. Work is a little bit tougher because I have a kind of job where a lot of people are asking me to work on different projects all at the same time. But I still try and avoid anything that feels like multitasking as much as I possibly can. And that's because multitasking doesn't really exist. All you're doing is task switching from one task to another. And it takes a lot of mental energy just to do that. And that's energy that could be better spent elsewhere. So instead of doing that, I try and focus on one thing at once and really protect my time to work. Which brings us to make efforts short and focused. So my second principle is to put in short, intense bouts of work on the things that I'm trying to improve at. So you've probably heard of Pomodoros, which are 25-minute bursts of effort interspersed with short rests, and I really rate these. 25 minutes is the perfect amount of time to concentrate on a lot of things because it's short enough that you can't really get bored, but it's also short enough that if you want to achieve anything in that time, you're going to have to really bear down and focus. So piano is a great example. I'll usually do 2 Pomodoros a day of piano, and then I'll kind of further subdivide those Pomodoros into like a 10-minute chunk and a 15-minute chunk. So I might spend 10 minutes a day working on technical exercises, then another 15 minutes on doing like sight reading of a new piece that I'm trying to pick up. And then if I get another Pomodoro during the day, I'll do a 10-minute and a 15-minute block on 2 different pieces that I've already learned that I'm trying to like polish up and work on. And then when I'm at work, I'll usually set a timer and focus on one task intensely for 25 minutes before I kind of get up, have a cup of tea, have a little walk around the house, and then maybe check my emails before the next burst of intense work. So Steve Magnus, who's a running coach I really respect, talks about treating work or practice like it's interval training. It's something that you can kind of build up a tolerance for and get better at working intensely at over time. And that's definitely true. And actually, I think that after a while of doing like 25-minute Pomodoros, you'll probably increase your concentration or focus to the point where you could be doing like 40, 45, 50 minutes in one session. But I still think there's a lot of value to taking these 25-minute chunks and forcing yourself to have a little break between so that you're working at full capacity when it's time to work. And then my third principle for getting a lot done is to always go into what I'm doing with a plan. Now this feels kind of obvious, but I would argue that it's the missing element in a lot of people's routines, and it really does make a huge difference. It means you can go into whatever you're doing for 20, 10, or even just 5 minutes and still make some serious progress, because you don't waste any time worrying about what you're supposed to be doing and just get on in and do it. So an important thing to understand is that different activities have different levels of what I'm going to call planability. Piano is super plannable because it's basically just you and the piano. You should always have something that you're working on, and there's nothing that can stop you from doing it. So for instance, I've been working on walking bass recently, which takes a lot of time to learn, but really you can't do like an hour of it in a day and make significant progress. It's much better to split that hour into a whole bunch of 5-minute efforts and let your brain work on the skill and let it compound over time. With piano, you really can make progress on 5 minutes a day, and sometimes just doing that 5 minutes makes me feel a whole lot better about the fact that I'm moving forward on a skill that I really want to learn. And then I think there are a whole bunch of other skills that are very much in the same bracket of piano, like if you're practicing art, that's kind of the same. There can always be stuff that you're working on. If you're trying to learn a new language, then you can get yourself some flashcards and just bash through them. And if all you've got is 5 minutes, you can still get something productive done. Working out is only slightly less plannable than piano. So I'll hit every training session knowing basically what I want to do. And the only thing that's going to change that plan really is if the gym's super crowded and for whatever reason I can't get on a certain bit of kit. So I'll hit the gym and get straight into my warm-up. Then I'll scope out the most important bit of kit for the day. And I really front load my workouts, so if things get messed up after the first move, I've still got most of the benefit of the workout in. And then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is one of the hardest things to plan because you don't know how any one individual session's going. Like, you don't know what the teacher's going to teach all the time, and you don't always know how the sparring partners that you end up with are going to want to roll. Like, are they going to be easy to roll with? Can you work on the stuff you want to do? Or are they going to smash you and put you on the defensive the whole time? And quite honestly, how you approach it is going to depend on your belt level. I'm a brown belt, so I can kind of control a lot of the roles that I'm in and do the things I want to do. If you're a lower belt, you are going to get smashed quite a lot. I still always go in with 1 or 2 moves I'm going to try and hit in sparring, and then with 1 or 2 moves that I'm going to try and grab someone and do a few extra reps of to drill at the end or beginning of the session, just to make sure I'm moving forward on my specific goals. And that means I don't have to spend hours in the gym to make progress. I can go in for an hour-long session and still kind of move forward on the things that I'm trying to learn week by week. So always have a plan. That can be as simple as knowing which book you're going to read so you don't end up checking Twitter instead. It can be as easy as having a list of documentaries you want to catch up on so you don't spend 20 minutes browsing the Netflix queue when you actually get some spare time. I get really limited time at the gym and the dojo, so I make all my decisions about what I'm going to do when I'm there away from those environments. And that's what works for me. Okay, so those are the general principles. Now, how do I fit all of that stuff into a typical week? First, here's a general idea of how I split my week up. I try to read every morning. I get up between 6 and 7, and the first thing I do after I get my 5-year-old some breakfast is to crack open whatever book I'm working on. That kind of sets me up for the day, and it keeps me in the reading mindset, so I'm good to keep reading whenever I get like 5 minutes on my own. I work out 3 times a week. Usually 2 of these are at the gym and 1's at home to save time on getting to the gym. The gym ones always happen early in the morning. I get up, have a coffee when I read, then run to the gym and get it done. I'll do a whole video about how I work out at some point, but the broad outline is that I do a lot of antagonistic supersets to save time. I use a lot of Metcon style finishers, and I usually keep my workouts under 45 minutes. Walking home from the gym is one of the only times in the week I listen to podcasts, so that's kind of a nice time to chill out. Side note, my wife also works out, so on the days I'm not going to the gym, she's going there, so I'm in charge of getting my boy ready for school and taking him there, which is kind of a nice time to reconnect with him and have some fun. Maybe get really emotionally invested in like some plasticine stuff or making a pop-up book. I'm usually at my desk from 9 a.m. to about 5:30 or 6, and my most important bit of advice about that would be to recognize the time when you're at your most productive and make sure you're using that time as well as you possibly can. So if you know that you usually get like the brain fog at about 3 o'clock, make sure what's scheduled for that time is like checking email, doing invoices, doing the grunt work that you don't really have to think about. And if you're super productive between like 9 and 11, make sure you're getting your best stuff done then. Again, I'll do a whole video on work habits at some point, but that's like the super basics. After work is dinner and family time, and then me and my wife take it in turns to put our son to bed. That whole routine, like with brushing teeth, reading books, everything else, can take about 40 to 45 minutes. So when it's not my night on, I spend that whole time playing piano. On the nights when it is my turn, I try and get some piano in, like first thing in the morning, or maybe a quick Pomodoro at lunch, so that all I have to do to get 2 Pomodoros of piano a day is to do another quick one before bed. At the moment, I'm trying to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 2 or 3 times a week, so that includes 1 technique session and usually 1 that's just all sparring. One of those sessions is in the morning, so that still leaves quite a few nights a week where my wife and I can like hang out and chill out when the boy's already in bed. And then after my wife goes to bed, I've usually got about an hour to spend on projects like this video, or I'll like go through some piano instructionals or some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructionals, so I know where I'm going to focus my attention the next time I'm like on the piano or at the gym. My downtime kind of happens at the weekends, straight after dinner with the boy, or like when I'm watching like 45 minutes of TV with my wife after he's gone to sleep. So I really don't mind like hammering the productivity late into the night. And honestly, I really enjoy the feeling of like being productive and moving forward on projects. So that does feel like relaxation to me. Like watching a piano video is like a way that I de-stress in a way that watching like the latest Netflix thing really isn't. I go to bed at 11 p.m. without fail. My boy will absolutely get me up at 7 o'clock, if not earlier every day, so I can't risk going to bed any later. Next morning, all starts again. And that's it. One thing I should say is that I know I'm incredibly privileged to have a job that lets me work from home and also to have like gyms within an easy distance from me. But I used to have an hour-long commute, and then I worked out at a gym that was like another half hour away from that. But I was always pretty productive, even though like a big difference was that I didn't have a child then. And I think the thing to say about it would be there are always going to be times when you can get like more and less done. There are always going to be stresses. So my best advice would be to try and find ways to move forward on the stuff that you want to improve at every day or every week, and then try and set your life up for the future in a way that lets you work on the stuff that you're going to want to. I don't spend a whole lot of time on things like morning, nighttime routines, like meditation, journaling, all that kind of stuff. If that works for you, great. It doesn't work for me. And that is it. That is how I set up my weeks to improve a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm thinking of introducing some new stuff to my routine, so like if that happens, I'll do a video on how I'm fitting that in. I would love to hear your productivity tips. Please hit me up in the comments. If you have any more specific questions about my routine, let me know. Please like and subscribe. Go do some training.